The second night of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert live at Chicago's Auditorium Theater, right after the Democratic National Convention, was unexpectedly interrupted. The first guest, former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, was interrupted during her on-air conversation with Colbert Tuesday night, which recapped the previous activities from the DNC. Balking at the label of architect to President Joe Biden's decision to step down from the 2024 presidential campaign, things took a turn only a few minutes into their discussion. While discussing her new book, The Art of Power, a protester started shouting from the audience. Colbert addressed the person in the audience stating, "For the people who can't tell, there's a protest going on in the audience." The host then swiftly threw it to a commercial while stating that he would return. "The subject is on Israel and Palestine, and if you have a seat, we have to go to the commercial break," Colbert said. "When we come back, I'll ask the next question I had on that subject." When they returned, Colbert finished a question from his earlier interview with Pelosi but then quickly switched gears. "Let's talk about another aspect of power," he said, pivoting back to the question from the protesters. "The U.S. using its power overseas, as I said earlier. There is a political protester here. There is a political invention in town. You are politician and protests are natural. People are protesting, even within the Democratic Party. There is dissension over what is the proper use of American power, especially protected power overseas, firm and soft power. If the goal is the peaceful and prosperous future for both Israelis and Palestinians, what role does the United States play?" Pelosi's response focused first on President Biden's current and past track record in foreign policy. "Let me just say this was a role that President Biden played very well for years. He was chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee," said Pelosi. "He was a senator a long time, vice president and president. His experience globally has been huge. If I could tell a story, before you were born, again, when I was in school, I went to the inauguration of John F. Kennedy. And in the speech he made this incredible inaugural address, he said to the citizens of America, 'Ask not what your country can do for you but what you can do for your country.' You probably read that in the history books. It was my youth." The very next sentence that he says in the speeches, "To the countries of the world, ask not what America can do for you but what we can do working together for the freedom of mankind. That is our mission. That is what Joe Biden was all about. So yes, we have had a commitment to Israel. It's been in our security interests to do so. Israel was attacked by a terrorist organization. We want the hostages freed. But we don't want children killed in Gaza. So we have to come up with a solution. And right now, we just got word earlier today that Israel had agreed to the ceasefire agreement. We're hoping that Hamas will too. But it takes me to the point of saying to you, war has no role in a civilized society. We have to learn more about trust and peace." During the end portion of this response, the audience members began shouting again, to which Colbert responded, "As you can see from the continuing protest out here, that answer is unsatisfying to some people." Colbert then turned to the protester and asked if they would like a response to their question, asking if they would listen Pelosi's response. Switching back to his guest, he then directed the question to her. "They have said that the United States should not have any role in supplying Israel arms to kill people of Gaza. That's what they are saying. Israel has a right to defend itself," Pelosi said. "But the other part of it is that's been so major for all of us for many years is that there must be two-state solution. You cannot have peace unless you have a two-state solution. Israel, a secure Jewish democratic state in the region. And the Palestinians having their own, secure country there as well. Unless you have a two-state solution, you will not have a resolution of this." At this point the shouting increased and Colbert instructed the protesters, "Please don't interrupt my guests." After a few more shouts from the crowd, Colbert began to wrap up his conversation with his first guest. Pelosi attempted to change the subject by yelling, "Isn't it great to be in Chicago?" The segment went to commercial shortly after. Hakeem Jeffries was the next guest, and Colbert also asked him about the ongoing conflict in Gaza in a hypothetical, asking, How would a Speaker Jeffries advise a President Harris? What President Biden is doing right now, what Kamala Harris is doing as part of the Biden-Harris administration, to do everything possible to try to achieve a ceasefire agreement, Jeffries said. To bring the hostages home, to surge humanitarian assistance to Palestinian civilians who are in harm's way, through no fault of their own. Surge that aid immediately and continuously. And to find a path toward a just and lasting peace. A safe and secure Israel and the Palestinian people being able to experience the dignity and self-determination that they deserve. At the end of the night, after the show went off the air, Colbert addressed the audience and thanked them for coming, expressing his gratitude, but didn't further address the protesters. According to insiders, all protesters left on their own accord, and the matter was handled peacefully. This is day 2 of Colbert's Chicago Live run, with Monday's episode wrapping up just after 1 a.m. Central Time.